Hello, hello. I think that was your, wasn't it, Alexander?
Yep.
We're getting a message. We're going live.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay, you got a notification from YouTube. Wow. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. YouTube sent the notification out. Great. All right. Welcome, everybody, to a live stream that we decided to put together. We'll be doing a lot more live streams, guys. So we hope that you enjoy our live streams, because it seems that it's the only way to deal with YouTube's algorithms for the time being. And you know, we're busting our ass day and night. It's just a cat and mouse game with YouTube for everybody that subscribes, and every view. It seems that YouTube just doubles down on their shadow banning and unsubscribing of us. Anyway, PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar, Bitcoin, you'll see those links down below. And since we're talking on platforms, video platforms, check us out on BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey. BitChute is really growing. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, so we're very close. I think we're about 1,400 subscribers away. So, Robert says he got the notification. All right, Robert, great. So we're very close to getting 10K in BitChute, and the platform is growing a lot. And Rumble, we're also growing a whole bunch. And of course, guys, Duran 20 before Christmas. Duran 20, you can get the Patriotic Legacy Beacon 3. Duran 20 gets you a 20% discount. The Swiss Army knife of flashlights. You can also enter a contest to win the blue camouflage beacon and a Duran shirt. That is the contest. Duran 20 at checkout. You'll find the link down below. I'll put that in after the video. Right now, you probably won't see anything down below, but I'll add all that stuff in down below. Welcome, everybody, to this live stream. Hello to everybody in Wisconsin and Wales, in Canada / China. Yeah, we had a lot of news about China. Hello to everybody in South Africa. I've got my South Africa mug right here. Hello to everybody in the UK. We'll connect to Rumble too. Great, Glenn. That's awesome to hear. Serbia. Hello to all my friends. It's Serbia. How are you guys doing? Ontario, Canada. Where else? Holland. Oh my God, Holland. You guys are now under a brutal lockdown, from what I understand. Really tough lockdown in Holland. So we're also in lockdown here. So welcome to the club, I guess. Australia, Malaysia, West Virginia. All right, Sweden. How's everyone doing in Sweden? New York City, South London says hi. Hello to everyone watching us on Facebook as well. We are also streaming on Facebook as well. So hello to everybody that is catching us on Facebook. And pretty soon I'll start streaming to D Live as well as some other platforms as well. So I'll be working that out as well, so we can start streaming to a whole bunch of platforms, not just YouTube. Hello from Sicily. Spartan Warrior Queen. Is Spartan Warrior Queen in the house? If you are in the house, Spartan Warrior Queen, hello. Hope you are doing well. Always great to have Spartan Warrior Queen with us, our awesome moderator. I don't see her anywhere, but
if not,
in the house. Alan, how are you doing? Alan, good to see you here. All right, so let's talk about, what do you guys think? Let's talk about Barr. Attorney General Bill Barr. Alexander, I read, I don't know if you caught the letter from Tom Fenton at Judicial Watch. A very, very, very short post that he did. And, you know, Tom Fenton does really good work at Judicial Watch. It's like a 2-paragraph statement on Barr. And boy, did he let Barr have it. But he basically said what we have been saying for a while, in that Barr, you're punching it in right now, aren't you?
Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm doing.
All right. He basically said what we've been saying, is that Barr started out really well. He came in, he shut down the Mueller investigation, and then it looked like we were going to get some justice, and we were going to get some truth out of everything that happened. But we didn't get any of those things. We actually got a lot worse. Not only did we get any closure on Russiagate and Ukrainegate, Obamagate, whatever you want to call it, we didn't get any transparency. We didn't get any indictments. The only thing we got was a slap on the wrist to a lower level FBI guy named Klein Smith. That is it. And in the end, what we got was a DOJ that didn't indict Comey, didn't indict McCabe, Strzok, Page, any of these people. We got a DOJ that didn't investigate any further into Russiagate, at least while President Trump was campaigning, which I think would have helped his campaign tremendously. But we got none of that. We got a John Durham appointed special counsel in October, though no one was notified of that appointment. I'm sure that also would have helped Trump's campaign a lot if people had known that Barr had appointed John Durham. And we got a complete shutdown and silence with regard to Hunter Biden, the four investigations into Hunter Biden, the fact that the FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop for more than a year, and we got complete radio silence there as well. We also got a bunch of lies from Barr, and the most notable lie, and why I say he is lying, is because he said that he didn't want to mention Durham or the Hunter laptop and the Hunter investigation because he didn't want to be like James Comey and make it look like he was interfering in the presidential election. But we know now that Barr knew of those investigations for the better part of 2 years, and maybe even further back he knew about these things. So if he knew about these things 2 years ago, then his excuse that he didn't want to mention anything about them because of the fact that he may look like a James Comey type figure interfering in the U.S. elections is a complete lie. So we really, and also Barr didn't look into any of the mail-in ballot stuff. None of that stuff either. None of that stuff before or after, but nothing. Didn't even bother to lift a finger to go into any of that stuff. So we got completely screwed by Barr. Everybody. I mean, on my end, Alexander, and I'll end it here. I feel completely screwed by Barr because I wanted to get to the truth of Russiagate. Obamagate, Russiagate. I mean, I really, really wanted to get to the truth of what happened. And I thought it was important to get to the truth of what happened, and very important for America to get to the truth of what happened. I mean, we've connected many dots. We have a very good idea what happened, but we still don't have closure. And that's, when you don't have closure on things, it just doesn't feel good. Anyway, Alexander Mercouris in London, say your hellos and jump right in.
Well, first of all, let me indeed say hello and say what a great pleasure it always is to do these programs and to interact with our viewers and to discuss these things in this way in a live stream. Can I just say these are completely unrehearsed? Alex and I just agreed to do it just a short time ago, focusing on Barr's resignation and all those things. But can I now get to this? I mean, you talked about that we need complete closure for Russiagate. I think that is absolutely true. I would add something else. It's all very well for people like us to go through all the various facts about Russiagate, to look into all the details, to explain what happened to our viewers. It's all very well for someone else, like Tucker Carlson, for example, or Judicial Watch, whom you mentioned, or The Federalist, or whomever, to do the same thing. But it doesn't carry the authority that a report from a proper investigation would do. And if we're talking about criminal offences, which may have been committed over the course of Russiagate, again, we just don't get the kind of closure from those that we would get if there was proper criminal investigations, criminal proceedings, criminal trials, and judgments from courts, or possibly alternatively pleas. If we had those things, we would have real closure. We would be able to say to people who deny that anything went amiss in Russiagate, who still insist that the whole Russiagate investigation was based on truth, the allegations that were made about Donald Trump and his campaign in 2016 being in some sort of collusion with the Russians. There's still people who say that. Those sort of people, there would be a clear-cut response to. We would be able to say, other people would be able to say it's been properly investigated. We now have the truth. It comes from this official, from the senior person, the senior investigator at the Justice Department. That person has been able to set the record straight once and for all, and we have closure. And given, of course, the great problems there always is, publicizing these things, a judgment from a court involving convictions, if that is what it involves, bears even greater clarity. So that's why we needed a dynamic, forceful investigation from John Durham, who is, of course, was being supervised by Attorney General Bill Barr. Now, that, it seemed, for much of 2019, was what we were going to get. Barr came along, he said to Congress that there had been spying. I mean, that was the word he used. He got into a lot of criticism for it, but it's supported by findings that the Inspector General of the Justice Department and the FBI, Mr. Horowitz, said. He spoke about, the fact that there'd been Pfizer abuse. He was looking into all sorts of issues, many of the issues about Russiagate that were arising, like, apparently he made this trip with Durham to Italy, and he was looking into the background and to the stories around Mr. Joseph Mifsud, this mysterious Maltese professor who allegedly said to George Papadopoulos that the Russians had dirt on Clinton, and that this was then used or was claimed to have been used by the FBI to justify opening the whole collusion investigation into Donald Trump's campaign. That's the official story, that the real origins of Russiagate were those. We heard all about that, and we were all waiting to see what would come, and nothing has happened. Now, Durham was appointed to conduct these investigations more than a year ago. I mean, we're talking about, I think, if I'm right in saying, the spring or early summer of 2019. We are now in December 2021, and there's been one very minor investigation of an offence identified and discovered not by Durham, but by Horowitz, the Inspector General of the FBI, when he looked into the Pfizer abuse, and which was a clear-cut, cut-and-dried case. They waited for that right up until the summer, and when they did finally prosecute it, they did it on a lesser charge and accepted a plea of guilty, which came with an extremely grudging admission of guilt from Klein Smith, this FBI lawyer who had been involved in that Pfizer abuse. And just to remind our viewers, what he actually did is he changed the wording of an email from the CIA to give the impression that the person who was going to be the subject of the Pfizer warrant, that's the Trump campaign official Carter Page, that he was not a CIA source when the CIA said he was. And this altered email was provided in evidence to the Pfizer court. It's a very serious thing, and yet it was treated almost as if it was not serious. So we have Russiagate. Nothing happens there. Now, we also now know that there were major FBI investigations going on into Hunter Biden's business dealings. And these apparently extend back to 2018. That's to say, more than 2 years ago. Barr himself became Attorney General in 2019. And the question is, when did he find out about them? What did he do about these investigations? Well, it turns out that it's already been admitted. The Wall Street Journal has said that he knew about those investigations at least since the spring of this year. I think he must have known long before then, because I find it very difficult to believe that the Justice Department would not have told Barr about those investigations much sooner than that. Certainly, I think it is all but inconceivable that he didn't find out about those investigations around August, September 2019, when the Democrats started to talk about impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump. Now, those impeachment proceedings, if we go back in time, they were focused around a telephone conversation that Donald Trump had with the Ukrainian president, Mr. Zelensky. And over the course of that telephone conversation, the Democrats alleged that Donald Trump tried to persuade Zelensky to launch criminal investigations of Hunter Biden's and Joe Biden's activities in Ukraine connected to Hunter Biden's role as a member of the board of a corrupt Ukrainian energy company, Burisma. Burisma had been under Ukrainian investigation, but the prosecutor who was in charge of that investigation, a Mr. Shokin, was removed after demands made by Joe Biden when he was vice president of the United States. So the Democrats said that Donald Trump was trying to instigate an investigation of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden in connection with that affair, and that this was unacceptable because it was an attempt by Donald Trump to get a foreign government to investigate a potential election rival, that's to say Joe Biden. Well, we analyzed that, we discussed that conversation in great detail. We pointed out that, in fact, that was not what Donald Trump said to Mr. Zelensky. The transcript, or rather the record of that conversation, makes that very clear. Donald Trump did not, in fact, try to get Mr. Zelensky to conduct such an investigation of the Bidens. But there was this crucial fact, which was not disclosed at the time, which was that, in fact, Hunter Biden was already under investigation, not by the Ukrainians, but by the US authorities. That was a material fact that would have assisted Donald Trump in the impeachment proceedings. It would have enabled him to construct his defense. It would have made for a stronger defense than the very strong defense he anyway had. I think it is inconceivable at that stage that the Justice Department would not have told William Barr as Attorney General about that investigation. I cannot believe that it would have withheld that sort of investigation from the Attorney General. And if it did, then William Barr ought to be very concerned, because the Justice Department would have been intentionally concealing important information from him, which it was important for him as Attorney General to know, so that he could advise Congress and advise the United States President, who was the head of the executive, the person who appointed him, who was Donald Trump. In fact, we know that that information about the Hunter Biden investigation was withheld, not just from Congress, but also from Donald Trump and from the American people. So that whole impeachment case took place without anyone knowing, or at least supposedly without anybody knowing, within the political world, that the entire premise of the impeachment was wrong, because Donald Trump supposedly was trying to instigate an investigation of Hunter Biden, when in fact such an investigation was already underway. So that's the second problem. And then we come to the third problem, which is that over the course of 2019 and 2020, Joe Biden stood as a candidate to be nominated by the Democratic Party as its candidate for president in the election which has just happened. At the very least, Joe Biden should at that point have been informed that his son was under investigation by the FBI. I think Congress should have been informed also, because obviously a material fact, and so should the president. It seems that no such formal confirmation to Biden, the Democrats, Congress, or the president was ever made. So the result was that when concerns started to spread in the autumn, during the election campaign itself, about Hunter Biden's business activities, when a certain laptop containing information was produced, a laptop of Hunter Biden's was produced, when people like Mr. Tony Bobulinski came forward and said, that there was all sorts of things going on, the Biden campaign and the Democrats said publicly that there was no evidence of wrongdoing by Hunter Biden, and that the claims about Hunter Biden bore all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. 50 intelligence officials came forward and made that claim about it bearing all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. Joe Biden himself referred with approval to that letter in one of the television debates. And as we know, the media and the big tech companies came together to suppress all debate and discussion of that information. Now, Barr certainly knew about those investigations. He certainly knew about them since the spring. He acted to conceal them. And that was concealment. That was concealment from the American people, from the president, from Congress, from Joe Biden himself, allegedly, and from the American people also, who needed to decide whether Joe Biden was an appropriate person to be elected president of the United States. Bear in mind, this was not investigation of Joe Biden. It was an investigation of his son. So it is not covered by the Hatch Act, which forbids investigations during the election period of candidates for electoral office. And moreover, these investigations began before Joe Biden ever announced that he was intending to become a candidate for presidential office. So on every one of these counts, Barr failed. Now, there's other speculations about, his investigations or failure to carry out investigations of the elections. I'm going to park those to one side because, well, there are constraints about discussing those things. All I will say about those is that once again, he showed, shall we say, a lack of energy, which might have been expected from the Attorney General of the United States. But both in his coverage of the Durham investigation into the Russiagate affair and in the investigation of Biden, I think he failed the president and he failed the American people.
Barr also failed on Epstein. I remember when the whole Epstein thing came down, Barr made some statements. Most notably, I think he made a statement that he believed in the whole thing, the way Epstein disappeared. I think Barr made a statement, if I'm not mistaken. He said something along the lines like he believed in. I don't know. I forgot. But the Department of Justice never followed through on Epstein. Yeah, we have Ghislaine Maxwell. We have that trial going through, but we don't really know what happened with Epstein at all. That's just been memory hold disappeared. No one even talks about it or discusses it.
Mm.
Here's a statement from Judicial Watch. Here's a sentence from Tom Fitton's press release. He says, right now, for example, the Barr Justice Department is protecting Hillary Clinton directly by trying to shut down all Judicial Watch Clinton email discovery and Freedom of Information Act lawsuits, while withholding the release of the Obamagate era emails and texts of the Page, Strzok, McCabe, and the Trump cabal. Tom Fitton is saying that Barr is now protecting Hillary Clinton, and he's protecting any of the evidence that he has in his hands, which show without a shadow of a doubt, because we know what Hillary Clinton did, without a shadow of a doubt that Hillary Clinton completely made up the entire Russia thing in order to distract from her email scandal. So we have, adding on to Barr's performance, we have Epstein, and we have the fact that he is covering up for Hillary Clinton. And that is the statement from Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch that he released today, that press release.
Well, I understand that. I mean, I think one important point to make is this. I'm not going to comment about the fact that he's not disclosing primary source documents, because those may be required for an investigation. All I will say is, if that is true, then the burden is upon him, upon Barr, to conduct those investigations vigorously. And that's not what's happening. I mean, Durham has been treading water now for over a year and a half. I mean, that's longer almost than the Mueller investigation took. That's an incredibly long time for nothing to happen there. I mean, it's really very troubling and very, very difficult to understand. What is Durham doing? I'm starting to wonder whether, there's been any kind of Durham investigation over the last 1.5 years, because I've not seen any sign of it. I really haven't, apart from this one small indictment. I mean, critical as I am of Mueller, and I am extremely critical of Mueller, at least we saw action out of him. Out of Durham, we've seen virtually nothing. Nothing. And the idea that, you can't put a grand jury together and, get things out of grand juries, that seems a bizarre claim to me. Are we saying that because of the problems, the health crisis there is in the United States at the moment, the entire criminal justice system of the United States at federal level has ground to a total stop? Of course not. Of course not. So I ask this question: what have these people been doing all this time? Yes, Barr started very, very effectively. He closed Mueller down, and that was entirely the right thing to do. The Mueller investigation had gone completely rogue. It had achieved its purpose, its stated purpose, by the autumn of 2017. It had established that there was no collusion between Donald Trump's campaign and Russia, and it went down a complete wild goose chase trying to find some kind of obstruction case against Donald Trump, which made no sense, no legal sense whatsoever. So Mueller did entirely the right thing, Barr did entirely the right thing, coming along and closing Mueller down. But since then, in spite of some very vigorous signals, he did nothing. He let 1.5 years go to waste. And, one has to ask ultimately, why did he do that? Why did he allow those investigations to basically tread water? And by the way, I would make similar points about these Hunter Biden investigations. I mean, apparently there's, some say there's 2 of them, others say there's 4 of them. They've been ongoing since 2018. Are they so complex and so massive that apparently it's still more than 2 years later? We're no further forward with those. When exactly in 2018 did they begin? But it seems to me that both of these investigations have been slow walked. Durham definitely has, and we're not getting any progress. And the information about them has been held back from the American people in a way that is deeply, deeply challenging for the democratic process in America. The presumption always ought to be in a democracy that the people should know. The presumption always should be in a democracy that the people should be told what they need to know about a candidate. If a candidate for office has a major investigation of corruption involving a close member of his family, and it doesn't get closer than one son, then I certainly think that the American people needed to know.
Have you or has anyone in the chat ever heard from Durham?
No.
Has anybody in the chat ever seen Durham? I mean, this is a serious question to everyone that's listening as well and watching. Has anyone ever seen like Durham give an interview or anything, something like that? I haven't. So I don't know.
I am absolutely sure that there has not been a single one. And I say that because if there had been, I would certainly know about it because I follow this thing closely. So far as I know, not only has there been nothing from... Yes.
Not it's a serious question.
Yeah,
I'm kind of laughing, but I'm kind of saying, who is this? It sounds to me like it's like a Kaiser Sose type of dude. I mean, I don't know. Who's this Durham guy?
Well, indeed. I mean, not only has there been nothing from him, I mean, there's not been anything at all from anybody involving in his investigation. I mean, can I just say something? I mean, when Mueller was conducting his investigation, at least we knew who was on his team. We knew about Andrew Weissman. We knew about all sorts of other people. And there was comments about that and criticisms. And many people were saying, you know, there were all those angry Democrats on it. But with Durham, I haven't a clue who's on his team. I know nothing about it.
Someone says he did Lou Dobbs. Durham actually did Lou Dobbs, if that's the case.
Well, please, I take it back. I take it back too. Provide me with a link. But whatever it was, it can't have been very enlightening because we simply don't know. We have no idea. I mean, I remember going back to Watergate. I remember, you know, Archibald Cox and the man who replaced him, whose name I've forgotten. But, you know, they were visible people. So was Ken Stark, who carried out all the investigations on Bill Clinton. And, of course, so in a different kind of way was Mueller himself. I mean, he didn't speak very much, but he had a spokesman. And, you know, we learned quite a lot about what was going on with Mueller. I mean, his investigation was, you know, all over the place. And with Durham, it's been virtually nothing. It's like that British play by Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, the person who never appears. It's waiting for Durham, and it doesn't seem that he will ever appear on the scene either.
Not only is there virtually nothing from Durham as seeing him, you actually get the same picture of Durham. I mean, I do image searches all the time when I'm doing thumbnails or whatever I'm doing. And every time I would punch in Durham, literally you get the same picture of Durham all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen maybe 2 pictures of the guy. That's it.
I agree.
So, I mean, I don't know if he's done an interview on Lou Dobbs. Wow. Because I can't recall that. So. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
No, I agree. I'm fascinated to find out that he's apparently done an interview with Lou Dobbs because I haven't seen it, and you're absolutely right. There's only one. I mean, if you go, I've just again looked up. I mean, it's always the same photo of Durham.
The same damn photo of the guy.
Yeah.
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy? Well, I mean, he's the U.S. attorney was the U.S. attorney for Connecticut, and that's about all I know. Well, apparently, but that's what he was. That's what he was when he was first commissioned to conduct an investigation. But that's all we've heard about him. And by the way, can I just say also, I think I always thought this. I always felt that this investigation, the Russiagate investigation, needed special counsel. By the way, no less a person than Lindsey Graham at one point was saying the same thing. And it's again bizarre that the decision to appoint Durham special counsel was only made a few weeks before the election. I think 2 weeks before the election happened, and that was concealed from the American people too.
All right, guys, is my connection bad? A couple of people said my
a little. Well, there's been. Well, I don't know. I mean, I not for me, I should say. I mean, there's been just one brief wobble anyway.
Okay. Just let me know, and if it's bad, I'll just check out and check back in again. Just let me know if my connection's bad. But your audio quality is a bit bad. My audio quality is a bit bad.
All right.
All right, just let me know if it persists, guys, and I'll can speak. I'll jump in.
Yes.
Jump out and jump in. But okay, my connection's fine. Thank you, Patricia. Okay, Alexander, Barr was doing his job. I think. I think he was doing exactly what he was meant to do. I think Barr was taking orders and following through on those orders. The only problem is that the orders that he was following were not his bosses, President Trump. He was following the orders of the Republican establishment and Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell today gave a speech on the Senate floor, and he has conceded the election to Sleepy Joe and Kamala. So he's openly said that he concedes. He's openly said that he looks forward to working with Joe Biden, who he calls a colleague, and with Kamala Harris, who he also calls a colleague. I think that a lot of people talk a lot about when you talk about Trump or Putin or many of these world leaders, you always hear about 3 or 4 or 5D chess. My honest take on this, looking back on everything that's gone on and seeing where we are today, I think there's I'll jump in and jump out after I finish this, and Alexander can answer this. I think that the one person that was playing 4 or 5 or 6D chess in all of this was Mitch McConnell.
Yeah,
that's what I think. Mitch McConnell played everybody, and I think Barr was taking orders from him. I also think, Alexander, real quick before I jump out and jump back in, I also think that Barr shut down the Mueller investigation from orders from Mitch McConnell and the Republican establishment, because I think that the Russiagate investigation wasn't getting what they wanted it to achieve, and that is to damage Trump. And so I think they just told Barr, just shut it down and let's work on the next task at hand as to how we can remove this outsider. And I'm being very polite as to probably how they categorize Trump, how we can remove this outsider. And I think that was what Barr then started to work on. And, some people say he's a patriot. Some people say he's going to spring something, on to help Trump in the next week or two. I look at actions. Not anything else. And I think Barr's actions to date show that he did not have the president's best interests in mind whatsoever. Anyway, I'm gonna jump out and then I'm gonna jump back in. Alexander, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, if I can just quickly say, I think one fundamental reason why Barr was appointed was that the Republicans lost the House in the 2018 midterm elections. So it became then extremely necessary to end the Mueller investigation, which I think many Republicans thought was doing them damage. So I think probably a lot of people within the Republican leadership said to themselves, this investigation is now doing us as much harm, perhaps even more harm, than it is doing to Donald Trump. So we need to shut it down. And so what happened was, after the midterms, the previous Attorney General was fired. Jeff Sessions was fired. Donald Trump appointed. Well, I've always wondered how Donald Trump found out about Barr, by the way, but somebody obviously suggested to him that Barr would be the right person to take over. Barr was brought in, and Barr very quickly and very efficiently, it must be said, closed the Mueller investigation down. And he made various supportive comments about Trump and made some very critical comments about Russiagate. And then, as we saw, the whole thing began to lose steam and lose direction. And I should perhaps say something, which is, of course, Barr's defenders. And there are many of them, by the way, within the Republican Party and in the various big Republican media outlets, Washington Examiner, National Review, and the rest, are saying that Barr acted properly. It was the correct thing not to disclose these investigations, not to, push forward with the Durham investigation, because to have done that would have been to accelerate an investigation for a political purpose, and that he was also right not to publicize the Hunter Biden investigation, because doing so might have influenced the election and would have been similar to what Comey did and was correctly criticized for doing when he published information about Hillary Clinton's investigation and said critical things about her while simultaneously clearing her, and then restarted the Clinton emails investigation just shortly before the 2016 election took place. I think all these comparisons and parallels are bad. Firstly, with respect to Durham and the Durham investigation, I come back and ask this question. Why is this investigation taking so long? Why wasn't Durham appointed special counsel sooner, as people like Lindsey Graham said he should be? Why has he not even produced an interim report? What is taking so long there? I mean, that's the first thing. That's what I would say about Durham. Now, as for Hunter Biden and the investigations of Hunter Biden, let me reiterate again, as of this moment in time, it is Hunter Biden who is under investigation, not Joe Biden. There was no reason, therefore, not to disclose it. It would not have violated the Hatch Act, but it was information that the American people were entitled to know. The American people knew about the Hillary Clinton email investigation. The American people obviously knew about the Mueller investigation. They should also have known about the Hunter Biden investigation. The criticism of Comey, which was made in 2016 and thereafter over the Hillary Clinton investigation, was not that the Hillary Clinton investigation was disclosed. It was about the way in which he stepped in to shut it down, said critical things about her, and then on the eve of the election, the 2016 election, reopened it again. But there has never, so far as I know, been criticism of the fact that people were made aware that Hillary Clinton was being investigated over her misuse of a private server for her emails. And nor should that fact have been concealed. And I have never heard that the fact that it was not concealed was ever criticized. So I think these comparisons that are made between Comey and Barr by Barr's defenders are completely and entirely wrong. Now, why did Barr act as he did? Coming back to Alex's questions, was he getting instructions from Mitch McConnell? I don't know. I don't know what passed between the two men. What I will say is this: Barr is absolutely part of the Republican political establishment. He was George H.W. Bush's Attorney General. He knows his way around Washington incredibly well. He must know lots of people in Washington. He must know other prominent Republicans in Washington also. I cannot believe that he wasn't acting without the knowledge of the Republican leadership, or at any rate, without pursuing what he thought were the best interests of the Republican Party, or at least of its leadership in Congress. And it is an established fact that the Republican leadership has never been happy or comfortable with Donald Trump. Trump does have his supporters in Congress, especially in the House of Representatives. He has never had a solid Republican Party supporting him in the Senate. There have been senators who have been extremely critical of him. Romney voted for his impeachment, even though, as we now know, that impeachment was brought on a false premise. By the way, he's not said anything about that. Romney has not come forward and said, well, if I'd known about the Hunter Biden investigation, I might have acted differently. He's remained completely silent about this. And he even criticized during the election attempts to bring up the Hunter Biden story. And of course, I never got the impression that Mitch McConnell was at all enthusiastic about Donald Trump either.
What a disaster. What a disaster. Sessions and then Barr.
Yeah.
What a disaster. Sessions, Barr, not going after big tech, but he should have. Letting Dr. Fauci get on there and get a platform and a podium to speak from. What tragic mistakes, really tragic mistakes. And and the swamp is just deep. It's deep, and it's it's like a playground, a sandbox. And as much as Pelosi and McConnell and all these people may be fighting with each other in that sandbox, the minute an outsider decides to come into that playground and start asserting themselves in that sandbox, in that fight, that's when McConnell and Pelosi say, wait a minute, you're not coming in here. Us two, we can fight in here. You can't. And they'll do everything to get that person out. And that's, put it simply, I think that's exactly what they both did.
Yes.
I think it was coordinated. I think they were working together. They each had maybe different reasons why they were doing it, or they thought they would benefit differently. And I think to this day, they both believe they benefit differently from a Kamala presidency, which we all know is coming. I think the Democrats believe they'll benefit in one way, and I believe the Republicans think they'll benefit in another. But either way, if you ask me, they combined forces and they worked together, and they managed to, at least to date, because these things are still going on, but they managed to accomplish a goal, and that is to get the new kid on the block, get him out. And that was their number one goal. And when I see pictures of old pictures with Barr and Biden, there are old pictures with Barr and Biden. And when I see, McConnell give that speech on the floor, or I heard Perdue running in Georgia talking about how he's excited for a McConnell-Biden cooperation. When I hear all these things, I just say, they're happy for them. Balance is back. Balance is back in the swamp for them. Things are back to normal.
Exactly. Well, that's the point, because, of course, what happened was that Donald Trump crashed a party. This is or rather, or if you prefer, a very exclusive club. And both Biden and Barr are extremely long-standing servants or members of that club. I mean, Barr, as I said, was George H.W. Bush's Attorney General. Biden has been in politics for the better part of 50 years. Politics in Washington, in the Senate. So these two people are absolutely part of a political establishment, a political class, a beltway elite, if you like, of which Donald Trump was not a part. Donald Trump had not held electoral office in America before he was elected president, and he had not served in any part of the US government or in any part of its bureaucracy. So he was a complete outsider. And the members of the club, as members of, club members whose club is gate crashed, always do, they deeply resented him. And in the end, people like Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden, who know each other very well, Mitch McConnell called Joe Biden his colleague. They know each other very well, have much more in common than either man as with someone like Donald Trump. Kamala, perhaps she's slightly on the outside because she wasn't so much part of the establishment in the same way. But I think the Democrats think they can use her. The Republicans think they can have her for breakfast. But in either case, she is someone that is not an outsider. She's part of the political system as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, she's part of the system. You saw that with the Kavanaugh trial that took place. And that's another point. And we'll get to super chats after I make this point. McConnell also got the people he wanted in the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
He got the Supreme Court. Never forget, Trump may have made the picks, but it was with McConnell's consultation and guidance that those picks were made.
McConnell has been handed an incredibly strong hand. He must be extremely pleased with the way things have turned out. He's seen the Republican Party's position in the House of Representatives strengthened. He's got the most pro-Republican Supreme Court since, well, what, the 60s, perhaps even before then. He's got more houses of representatives across the United States than ever before. He's even seen the Republicans pick up votes and seats in the House of Representatives in places like California. And he now stands a real chance of holding on to the Senate and remaining Senate Majority Leader. He must be extremely pleased with the way things have turned out. And from his point of view, he's done very well out of Donald Trump, who he never, I think, especially liked. And if Donald Trump is now out, well, for Mitch McConnell and for people who think like him, it's so much icing on the cake. They can that way go back to things as normal as they were before. Everything is as it was. He's got investigations of, the Bidens going. He's got possible investigations of Russiagate coming. He could play hay with those in the run-up to the 2022 midterms. He must feel that he's in an exceptionally strong position. And he's won another victory today with, well, not today, but he's got another victory with the relief bill that's now gone through Congress. It's turned out to be...
What does that tell you?
Well,
what does that tell you?
Well, exactly. Far more on his terms than it was on Donald Trump's.
Stay there. We'll get to the super chats, but stay there because I wanted to mention it and I forgot. And I'm glad you brought it up. What does that tell you, Alexander? The fact that you had this relief bill going for how many months before November 3rd?
Yeah, exactly.
And now they decide to go through with it. McConnell and Pelosi. Now they decide to go through with it. A day or two removed from December 14th.
Well, there you go. I mean, again, it shows you how these people, when they want to, they work together, especially when there's no reason any longer to worry about Donald Trump, because as far as they're concerned, they've pushed him aside. He's no longer there. They could have agreed this in the summer. They could have agreed this in the autumn. They had months upon months to agree to it. Now they've agreed to it. But notice, principally on McConnell's terms. So he's extremely well. He's done extremely well out of this. He must be going and drinking his bourbon and saying to himself, I have seen off Trump, this person who was causing me all this trouble over those 4 years. And he must be toasting himself and how well things have turned out for him.
Yeah. No, I mean, okay, we still have till the 20th.
Yeah.
And a lot can happen, but don't put, I mean, some people are talking about Mike Pence. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, I could be wrong. I wouldn't put any trust in Mike Pence either, even though Mike Pence has shown at times, many times, that he is that he likes President Trump and he gets along with him and he's loyal with him. But at the end of the day, I also believe that Mike Pence is also part of the McConnell club.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put any trust in Mike Pence for when I believe it's January 6th when the when he has to count all the votes or certify all the votes in the Senate. I wouldn't put any trust in Mike Pence either. I don't think he'll rise to any sort of an occasion that people may be expecting from him. And I think even if he wanted to rise to that type of occasion, I think the pressure would be so immense that he would not be able to move forward with such a thing. And I also think at the end of the day, Mike Pence is also eyeing 2024, so I don't think he would take the risk of that either. So
I agree.
Even though I don't say, give up on what's going on. Don't put your faith in an act that Mike Pence might do come January 6th. I don't see it.
I entirely agree. I completely agree with that. I mean, I have to say that for me, it's now looking. It's not gone from difficult. It's gone to almost insurmountable between now and the.
Technically, it could happen. Technically, it could happen.
Technically, anything can happen, but practically, in practical terms, I think it's. I don't expect it. Let me put it no more. Let me put it as simply as that. But having said that, I mean, looking at how it's been done, it has a distinctly ugly look, and it's very depressing that the person who is the Attorney General of the United States has played such a central role in letting it happen. Because Barr came in, he, as Judicial Watch said, started incredibly strongly, extremely well. He seemed to be the person who was going to put everything right. He talked about sorting out the problems in the Justice Department. Things have turned out otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's what can you say? What can you say? There's some battles won, some battles lost, and we'll continue onwards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the most important thing to say. It is not over, never is. Whatever happens on the 20th of January, whatever happens thereafter. Lots of things can always happen, and one should never. Counsels of despair are always extremely bad counsels, in politics especially so. But looking at the situation today, considering the topic that we're discussing today, Bill Barr, certainly it was the right thing to ask him to resign, even if the period of time that he would remain Attorney General is a foreshortened one anyway. So I hope he enjoys his Christmas, because I'm a generous man. But I think at the end of the day, he didn't just fail his president; he failed the United States.
Well, he failed as president. He failed the United States, but he came through for the swamp.
He came through for the people that he belongs to and is a part of.
Yeah, he came through for the swamp, no doubt about it. And on a final note, Trump needs to pardon Assange and Snowden and Papadopoulos and Roger Stone and anyone else that I'm missing. He needs to pardon these people tomorrow.
Oh, I agree.
I don't know if he will, but please, President Trump, just whatever the outcome's going to be come January 20th. And I understand people say, have faith. I understand that. But things look difficult, and Trump can make things right by pardoning Snowden, Assange, Stone. Is Chelsea Manning, Papadopoulos, Chelsea Manning, is there a pardon there as well?
I'm not sure, but the fact of the matter is that whatever she is, she's still very much enmeshed in legal processes. Maybe not this moment, but there've been cases brought against her related to the Assange case, and those should end. But you're absolutely right. Just coming to your question, I mean, regardless of what the situation is, we cannot play with people's lives. These people have suffered enough. They need to be pardoned so that they can finally put their lives together. And amongst that group, I include Paul Manafort, a person to whom I would normally not give the time of day. I have no particular liking for him. I have no doubt at all that he's done some pretty awful things. I have no doubt at all that he's committed some, frankly, criminal offences. I'm sure he's guilty of many of the things he was charged with. But the fact of the matter was, it was a political prosecution. The judge in his case said to the prosecution, "You're not prosecuting this man because he's guilty. You think he's guilty. You're prosecuting this man because you want to get at Donald Trump." The judge was absolutely right. And if only for that reason, Paul Manafort should be given a pardon. And of course, Papadopoulos should be pardoned. Of course, Roger Stone should be pardoned. All of the people who were convicted over the course of Russiagate should be pardoned. The one exception is Michael Cohen, the awful, ghastly, corrupt lawyer who was, of course, not convicted in relation to any of the Russiagate matters. He was convicted on the strength of proceedings brought against him by the Southern District of New York. And that's a completely separate issue. And I wish people wouldn't lump him together with the others.
Yeah. I also think that there's I could be mistaken, maybe people in the live stream know. Also, Kim.com, I believe, is being chased after.
I believe
in the U.S. and I believe he pardon if he needs to be pardoned, pardon him as well. Absolutely.
I believe you're right. I think you're absolutely right. As I said, all of those people should be pardoned. And of course, by the way, you're quite right. Assange and Snowden should also be. Assange because, well, he's been put through absolute torment, a hideous ordeal. And bear in mind, I mean, he has also been, enmeshed in the Russiagate vortex. I mean, a lot of the abuse that he's had to suffer is because of this false narrative about him being a Russian agent or a Russian stooge and all those things. So, of course, Assange should be pardoned. I mean, quite apart from the fact that, in my opinion, unequivocally, he is a good journalist, and unequivocally, the proceedings which have been brought against him put other journalists potentially at threat. So Assange should be pardoned, and of course, so should Edward Snowden. I haven't followed it properly, but I believe that there has been yet another case before yet another court, an appeal court somewhere in the United States, which has again said that this bulk surveillance program, which he exposed, is illegal and unconstitutional. So I think both of those two people should definitely be pardoned, and pardoned right away. And I would certainly not risk keeping them in prison or under suspense on what is now looking, I think, a very wild gamble over what might happen on the 20th of January.
All right, let's get to some super chats. I have the straight arrow 62 says, "Pardon Avenatti, not." Yeah, don't pardon Avenatti.
No,
remember when Brian Stelter said that Avenatti was going to be president?
Well, I do remember, actually.
Fake news CNN, the worst, the absolute worst.
I know.
Oh boy. All right, let's do some super chats while I have them here. Let's see. Interim President Toilet Sauce, €2. The more has done his duty. Thank you very much for that super chat. From Sparky, Barr preserved the two-tier justice system. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
And from Sparky again, Barr agreed with the deep state. Epstein killed himself. Yeah, that's what I thought Barr said. I thought Barr gave
He did get that interview. Now, I'm going to be very careful. I don't know that was wrong. I mean, I'm not. All I am saying is there was supposed to be an investigation. I don't know if there was. I've not heard any outcome of that investigation. It's a bit like
talking about it anymore.
Exactly. I mean, it's a bit like the Durham investigation.
Never happened.
Exactly, never happened. I mean, what's happened? I mean, one way or the other, we should know. I mean, we heard stories that two of the guards were supposedly asleep or something. I mean, has any action been taken about them? Have they been charged with anything? I've heard nothing at all. And again, if people are worried and they start to speculate and they come to certain conclusions, Can you be surprised? Can you be surprised when there is no proper investigation, no one looking at these things, no one finding out what really happened, no one bringing anybody to account? What about the prison governor? What about the prison administration? So, as with Russiagate, you can piece you put all the dots together. You can work out what happened. You can write books about it. You can do programs like we've done many programs. You can write clever articles and all those things. They are not a substitute for a proper investigation carried out by legal authorities, calling in the witnesses, finding out what happened, taking it if it should be taken to court, and getting from the court a proper judicial decision.
Yeah. It's unbelievable that we still don't know what the hell Epstein was up to. We don't even know who he really was.
No. I mean, actually, it's a very good point. I mean, there's another thing. I mean, regardless of the case that's underway at the moment involving Ghislaine Maxwell, there should be a proper investigation and review of the entire Epstein case. And that doesn't just mean finding out the truth about him, but also finding out how he was able to carry on doing all the things that he was doing for as long as he did without law enforcement really doing very much about it. When we had a big scandal in Britain in the 1960s involving a British minister called John Profumo, who it turned out slept with a woman who was simultaneously sleeping with the Russian defense attaché, and it was a big scandal and all kinds of things happened. Afterwards, the government appointed a judge, Lord Denning, to carry out a thorough investigation of all that had gone wrong, find out exactly what was going on, what had happened, and he did that, and he provided a report. It seems to me that the Epstein affair calls for exactly the same thing. Well, no sign of anything like that in the United States. When there was the Iran-Contra affair in the United States back in the 1980s, a US John Tower, I think it was, who was a well-known US politician. He also was commissioned, I think actually by the president in that case, to carry out an overview and investigation, looking at whether there'd been problems in the National Security Council, finding out what had gone wrong. And he also provided a report. With Epstein, we see nothing. With Durham, well, we've seen, as I said, one photograph, as far as I know. With Hunter Biden, I haven't just seen nothing until a few days ago. We actually knew nothing because investigations were being conducted and we didn't know anything about them.
They can get away with anything, literally anything. We should all remember that, given the times we're living in right now and everything that's going on. They can get away with anything.
Well, they can, but only up to a point, because what it does is, of course, it sows mistrust and cynicism. And, I've been to countries, I've been to Russia, and I know you've lived there, Alex, and we both know how corrosive of a society mistrust and cynicism can become, and how difficult it is when those things are lost to get them back, and how difficult they make it when that takes hold, to get people to do anything. I mean, they won't invest money, they won't build businesses, they won't do anything because they don't really believe any longer anything that they're told.
Yeah, you have the same in Greece, Alexander. You have the same in Greece. I completely agree with you. You have the cynicism. But you know what? They found a workaround to all of that now. They found a workaround to all of that. And it's AI, it's robots, it's shutting everything down, it's getting everything on the internet. It's all that stuff now. To me, I think they figured out the workaround. Let people be cynical. Let people be people. Let people not trust us. We don't care anymore. That's what they said. They said, we don't care because we're going to figure out a workaround, and it's called lockdown. That's the workaround.
I think that if that is their idea, then they are dangerously wrong about that. And they wouldn't be the first people to think, by the way, that they found a way of getting around problems like this. And this sounds to me like a technocrat's dystopian fantasy, and I think it's completely unworkable. But we're going a bit off topic. We could talk about that.
Let's get back on course. Let's get back on course. We'll have another stream tomorrow, guys, by the way, as well. Yeah. And this stream, we promise, will be on Brexit.
On Brexit,
the Brexit stream. And we are going to do a very in-depth look at what's going on Brexit, because it just doesn't end.
No,
I mean, it's crazy. It just doesn't end.
No, I know, absolutely. It's quite extraordinary. But we will certainly do that.
We'll get on there. We'll get on there. We'll get on there tomorrow and talk about it. Lisa Lister sent us a $20 super sticker. You are amazing. Thank you very much, Lisa, for that super sticker. Really appreciate it. JJHW, £5 those who revolution possible make revolution inevitable. That is from JFK.
I'm afraid I didn't hear it. This is one time when you were a bit broken, Alex. If you could just perhaps repeat it to me.
Yeah, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Well, indeed, quite so. Quite. That was JFK.
Yeah, JFK.
That was JFK. Yeah.
From Sparky, Bill Barr seems to be pals with Chris Wray.
Yes, very much so. I mean, there's another thing. I mean, perhaps in some ways that was the early warning, because if Barr really wanted to get on top of everything, I think one of the things he needed to do was to sack Chris Wray, because it was absolutely clear that Chris Wray, from a very early stage, when he replaced Comey, was refusing to provide Congress the information it needed when the House Intelligence Committee, at the time when it was led by Devin Nunes, was trying to conduct investigations of Russiagate, and it was in effect blocking congressional investigations.
All right. From Darren Alevi, seems the establishment's gatekeeper is leaving. Good riddance. A shame it took too long.
Well, yes, of course, except that he will now be replaced by an even tougher and more committed and more open gatekeeper. So, it seems to me, actually, that what needs to happen now is that there needs to be a real shake-up of the Justice Department if a real president ever comes on the scene, which may still happen. I mean, let's not, as I said, give way to counsels of despair. They're always bad counselors.
All right. From Darren Levy as well. We answered this, actually. Do you think Trump will pardon Assange and Snowden on his way out? That would be the best political bombs to throw at the swamp.
I completely agree with that. Whether he will do it, I don't know. I mean, there were rumors that he was on the verge of pardoning Assange, but we haven't heard anything. Yesterday, but as I said, they were just rumors, and nothing came of them. So we'll see. I mean, he will get an awful lot of resistance. But I have read reports, by the way, that one person who strongly advised against pardoning Snowden was, surprise, Bill Barr.
Well, all right. Doesn't surprise me anymore. From Marky, which President Trump replaced Barr with Rick Grinnell?
Well, I'm not sure Rick Grinnell is actually a lawyer, but at least when he was there, he actually did his job. I mean, as in the summer, we got far more information then than we have either before or, to be frank, even under Radcliffe since. The Radcliffe, by the way, has produced some very interesting information. Perhaps I should just touch on this about these meetings that Brennan and Obama had in the summer of 2016. And it seems that Brennan advised Obama that the Russians had got wind of the fact that Hillary Clinton was launching the Russiagate collusion allegation in order to divert attention away from the scandal about her own use of a private email server. That we've already known, but it seems that Brennan also may have advised Obama that the Russians were in some way directing Hillary Clinton's claims about the collusion allegations with respect to Donald Trump. Now, that is extremely difficult to understand. We don't yet know most of this. Most of these handwritten notes of Brennan's discussions with Obama have been very heavily redacted. There's an extraordinarily interesting exchange in which Obama, this is in the summer of 2016, asks Brennan outright, was the collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians? And Brennan's reply is redacted. So we don't know what Brennan said in response to that. That's a very interesting exchange, actually, and lots of questions we could ask, lots of questions we should ask. But more to the point, what is all this business about Brennan telling Obama that the Russians were in some way, steering, guiding Hillary Clinton and her claims about Russiagate? That doesn't seem to make any great sense. It seems completely counter-logical that they would want Hillary Clinton to throw suspicion on themselves. And I wonder whether, in fact, there isn't an explanation for this. And I wonder whether it's possibly the case that the CIA found out in the summer that a lot of this information was coming through Steele from this man, Igor Danchenko, who was this person who was working in the Brookings Institution. It turns out the FBI and the CIA thought that Danchenko was a Russian spy. And since it seems that they also knew that he was a source for the Steele dossier, they may have believed that he was actually feeding in disinformation into the Steele dossier at the instigation of the Russians. Lots of questions, very few answers. I should say quickly that I don't believe that Danchenko was feeding disinformation into the Steele dossier at the instigation of the Russians. But there's so much still about Russiagate we don't know. And the person who ought to be providing the answers and who ought to have provided the answers long ago was none other than John Durham and Bill Barr.
All right. From Sparky, Durham goatee pick is to appear. He means business. I agree with that. Well said, Sparky. Well said. It's all BS. They're all playing us. Life of Brian, $4.99. Brilliant. They invent people to vote for Biden and then kill off their fictitious people to juice the coof stats. 2 birds, 1 pretend stone. Life of Brian. Fantastic observation. Yeah. I'll just say what I said to Sparky's tweet. They're playing us. They're playing us. From Kieran O'Connor, how's it going? Thank you very much for that. Super sticker. Thank you very much for that super sticker. Sparkticle 1954. £5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. From Robert Pometti, $5 super chat. Will Julian be free after Barr is gone?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I here declare an interest. I've spoken at pro-Assange events. I've been asked to speak at a pro-Assange event on the 4th of January, which is the day, by the way, that the court in London is supposed to announce the decision on the extradition hearing. I've, of course, written extensively on this subject. So obviously I am very, very partisan about this one. I mean, I say this straightforwardly. I am somebody who strongly believes that Assange should never have been prosecuted, never should have been put through this ordeal, and should be freed. And I would very much hope that he is released and reunited with his family, as he should be. I mean, quite apart from anything else, I think it's completely wrong that he hasn't been granted bail. But will it happen? I don't know. It depends on Donald Trump now.
Let me find the next super chat real quick. From Mark Hewitt. If you are right about Mitch McConnell, what do you think the reaction in Georgia runoffs will be?
I wish I could say. I mean, of course, this is where it's very difficult for me as somebody who lives in London and who's British and who's never been to Georgia, by the way, though I hear it's a beautiful state. It's very, very difficult for me to get a feeling of the situation on the ground. My guess is that the Republicans will hold on to both Senate seats, and they should definitely hold on to one of them. I'll be very surprised and have some important questions to ask. I have to be very careful what I say if they lose both. But, logically, they should win both, judging on the way the voting happened previously. And I would have thought that all the things that have been happening over the last weeks would have the Republican base, the Republican voters in Georgia fired up and even more determined to vote than they were before. I would point out that I understand that Biden's post electoral college vote speech, by the way, it's those votes haven't yet been counted, just saying. I mean, they have to be counted by the House of Representatives, so there's still a certain part of this process still to go. But anyway, I gather that Biden's speech was barely viewed. I gather that it was into the tens of thousands, and I gather that there's still millions of people coming out and supporting Donald Trump in big rallies and things of that kind. So there still seems to be energy on one side and a notable lack of energy on the other. And I would have thought that ought to translate well into the result in Georgia. But I am remote from events. I cannot say for sure.
Stacey Abrams gave an interview yesterday, and she said that they've now collected 1.2 million or 1.3 million absentee ballots.
Well, there we go. I mean,
it looks like the Democrats are very very positive about the outcome in Georgia.
Well,
so I'll just leave it there. We don't know what the voting is going to be in person on the day, but Stacey Abrams has been working overtime in collecting votes.
Of course, she has never accepted that she lost.
Yeah, but well,
just saying.
I would, if I would say anything, I would say that it most likely will be a split. But there is a possibility the Democrats may take both. There's that possibility.
Yeah,
I don't know. But Stacey Abrams looked very confident in what she has been doing on the ground.
Yes. I would add that I think his name's Perdue.
Perdue.
Yes, Perdue. He seems to have made one or two unforced errors. I think he should have debated Ossoff, frankly, for example. But I mean, again, there may be reasons why he didn't, which from my distant perch in London, it's difficult for me to.
Well, they made big errors, and I'll leave it here. They made big errors in the fact that they trash talk Trump. Kemp and Perdue, Republicans.
Well, indeed,
they trash talk Trump. That was the tragic mistake.
Yes.
They should have supported Trump.
Yes.
But they trash talked him instead.
Yes.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
From Fran Brown, $4.99. I wonder if the Koof shot, I'll change the wording around a little bit. The Koof shot will polish off Biden. He and Harris are due to get in the next few days. Maybe that's why there's pressure on the Dems. But my only comment there is that I think that all these leaders that are talking about publicly in front of cameras, getting the shot and all that stuff, all the world leaders, whether it's Biden and Harris, if you want to call them world leaders, I think it's going to be much like an Obama Flint, Michigan, drinking the water kind of thing. It's all for PR. I don't think there's any reality to any of it.
I'm sure that's right. I'm absolutely sure that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it's real, any of it. It's just all for the photos, for the PR.
Yes.
Life of Brian, $4.99. National Review is defending Barr. Defending Barr is destroying itself. At least liberal magazines have a real audience. Who is NR writing for?
Well, indeed, this is very interesting because, of course, before I'm very glad you brought up that this person brought up National Review, because, of course, before it was known that it was Bill Barr that held back the information about the Hunter Biden investigations, a National Review was actually criticizing the fact. They were saying it was all disgraceful. I'm just going to quote it again. I've got it in front of me. This is National Review. This is a direct quote. Another disquieting aspect of this story is how the Department of Justice purportedly participating in burying it being the Hunter Biden story. Sources told Fox News and others that the DOJ is super sensitive about moving investigations from covert to overt during an election if they believe it could potentially affect the outcome. The political sensitivities are irrelevant. We need to know more, but tamping down an investigation to hide it from the public before an election is as bad as accelerating an investigation to smear someone. Law enforcement is tasked with investigating criminality, not with assessing how their work will shape public perception during an election. Rather than following process, bureaucrats, of course they didn't realize as Barr, are now making investigatory decisions that could easily be construed as helping politicians who are either their boss or their future boss. Moreover, Hunter is not even a candidate for any office. What kind of familial relationships are covered under this friendly DOJ dispensation? Cousins, in-laws, friends, anyone with the name Biden? If the DOJ's argument is that Hunter was so close to Joe that an investigation might have affected his father's chances, then, well, that's an important enough relationship that I think voters ought to know about. Shouldn't they be aware of the prospect of corruption? So that's what National Review was publishing, before it turned out that the person who made the decision to conceal the fact about the Hunter Biden investigation, the fact of the Hunter Biden investigation, was Bill Barr. Now, of course, they've switched. Now they're saying something completely different. They now say things like, Barr's critics should reconsider, and that it was all, he acted entirely properly, and that they're going out of their way to defend Barr, and saying that he was trying to defend the integrity of the Justice Department and keep away from interfering in elections. So before they know it was Barr, they criticize the very thing that they're now praising. So that tells you how completely mixed up this whole thing is.
All right. From Clive Richardson, the Q movement definitely looks like a psyop now. Q sat on the hands, trusting the plan must be a big embarrassment now for Q people.
Yes.
It's hard to say what's. God, I wish I could answer that. It's just hard to say.
Yes, I know.
What the hell's going on?
Yes.
The only thing is, I'll just give my opinion again, and I'll leave it there. I think this was a big win for Mitch McConnell, and I think this was planned many years ago.
Yes.
From Spectacle 1954, okay with what is occurring around the world, what part can the Magna Carta 1215 and English Constitution 1688 play if recognized?
Well, I should say that I don't know what relevance Magna Carta has in American law? Probably not very much, I'm guessing. In British law, there's only one section that is still, I think, carries, well, I think there's two sections that carry force. One of them we can disregard. The one that everybody remembers is that the king won't punish you except through due process following trial by your peers. So that's in other words, that the king won't punish you except through process of law. In other words, you have to be found properly guilty by a court of law before you can be punished. That's still in Magna Carta. Whether that has any relevance to the US any at all, I simply can't say. I doubt it, actually. I would have thought that all American constitutional and human rights law today flows from the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights.
Okay. From Sparky, McConnell's 2014 opponent got 37% of the vote, despite the DNC withdrawing her campaign funds a month before the election. Dem establishment wanted Mitch.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. Absolutely. So, absolutely. I would say, by the way, that in the election that's just passed, there were some claims that, of course, Mitch was going to lose. I can remember all kinds of predictions that his seat was in peril. And of course, he's still there, looking, as I said, undoubtedly feeling very pleased with himself.
Yeah. Kieran sends 20 euro super chat. Thank you very much for that. Nova Prussia sends 15 euro super chat. Thank you very much for that as well. Appreciate it. Dita Pong, £5 super chat. I'm sorry to say this, but it seems that the only way for Trump to have remained in power was to have a figure like Beria or maybe Michael Flynn. They took out Flynn early. So.
Well, certainly not Beria, who was a monster, but Michael Flynn, the loss of Michael Flynn right at the beginning of his presidency, I think severely weakened him. And with hindsight, he never really recovered. And by the way, he made many mistakes over the course of the Flynn affair. I mean, a more experienced and guileful leader would have held on to Flynn. It didn't have to work out like that. But then Donald Trump is not a guileful man, and that's one reason why people vote for him.
I saw the live stream, someone who said it. If you're still watching and listening, the person that said it, then please punch in and let me know. But someone said, let's not forget about Pence. Pence was the person that sold Flynn down the river. So
Absolutely.
From, let's see, Falvi Pollard, $50 super chat. Awesome. Thank you very much, Falvi Pollard, for that super chat. Really appreciate it. From Moon Swan Silverlight, £20 super chat. Alex M. just beat me to it. I was going to say that the elites can only go so far before people will completely stop trusting them. Next time anything like this is tried again, people will be less likely to fall for it. Absolutely. That is exactly what happens. I've seen it happen. I've actually seen it happen in countries. People have enormous confidence and belief in the good intentions and goodwill and proper functioning of their legal system and their political system. And then it gradually ebbs away. And when it's broken, it never comes back. And that's a very, very dangerous situation for any country to be in. It's very sad, very tragic that this should now be happening to the United States, given the tremendous faith Americans and pride Americans have had in their political system and in their constitution. Okay, interim president toilet sauce. If Trump runs again in 2024, I would be interested to know if he does so as a Republican or an independent. Yes. I think many people would be very interested to see that, actually. Much will depend on what happens over the next 4 years. I think that at the moment, he probably still intends to run as a Republican because he will be looking to build support from Republicans in Congress, especially those in the House of Representatives who are much closer to him. But I'm not sure, and I can easily see how it might turn out otherwise. Okay, from Kieran O'Connor, €5 super chat. Was Durham the character in Life of Brian who lived in the hole beside the juniper bushes, the silent type? Well, indeed. Well, a very silent type. Whether a strong one, I'm not so sure, to be honest. But very, very silent.
So silent.
I'm telling you, the same photo that pops up everywhere, and he hasn't given one interview that I've seen of. I don't
No,
know.
I
I don't know.
I haven't seen one. I really haven't. I mean, I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical about it.
Okay,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Teresa Strasberg, $24 super chat. Watching from Germany, thank you for what you do. Well, thank you, Teresa, for that super chat. We appreciate it. Darren Levy, would you guys sometime next week do a 2021 political predictions video? Example, predictions on German federal election, first year of a Biden admin.
Absolutely, and we should certainly do that because it's interesting. And by the way, Germany's a very, very interesting country. It's an extremely interesting situation there. It's very interesting to see how the German political elite were able to use the health crisis to basically strengthen their political positions and to make themselves more popular. But I suspect that is now running out because things don't look so successful now as they did back in the spring. And can I also say that it will be very interesting to see whether the AfD gets its act together, because it is one of the most disorganized and fractious parties I've ever seen.
Okay, from Nova Prussia, a super sticker. Thank you very much for that super sticker. Nathan Chung, $5. How likely is President Trump to declare martial law for the election?
I don't think it's very likely, to be frank. I mean, I'm aware that a lot of people are talking about these scenarios. I just think it's far too risky. I mean, I think also bear in mind that, if he does it, will all the people around him, be willing to support him do it? I mean, they'll be frightened. They'd be very frightened.
Can I make a comment? Sometimes, and this sounds kind of strange, but in Greece, with political parties and politics, many of the Greeks always say sometimes it's best to be the opposition party. In the UK, you call them the shadow party.
Yes.
Sometimes you're in the strongest position when you're in the opposition. So I think Trump is better served, and the Trump team, for lack of a better word, is better served instead of taking that risk, which is a huge risk. Is better serving America if they're operating as the shadow.
I completely agree with that. I mean, that's entirely
shadow team. I don't know.
Yeah,
the UK use, for example. But
absolutely, and give the United States something that it hasn't had for a very, very long time, which is a real opposition.
Think Nigel Farage, for example.
Exactly.
Think Nigel Farage, who holds Boris Johnson's feet to the fire.
Absolutely correct. That's exactly right. Yeah. So I think Trump is a far stronger position to do that than Farage. Has far more supporters in the United States than Farage did, and of course those supporters, well, they have all sorts of feelings at the moment, which he can build on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people talking about it, but it's very crossing that Rubicon. It's very risky.
I agree.
Who knows?
Well, he is impulsive, but as I said, I just don't think in the end he's going to do it. And to be frank, I think the people around him, if they were asked, they would all advise him not to do it.
Yeah. Flying Boar, $5 super chat. Since Biden is president-elect, Putin better get tough now, because all he does is talk but no action. He needs to respond hard.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, it's a question what form that response should take, and we'll just see. I mean, I at the moment, I would simply point out we had 3 attempts at color revolutions, if you can call it that, or at least political disturbances, crises in what the Russians call the near abroad, which is the former Soviet Union. One was in Belarus, and that I think has conclusively failed. I mean, there were some more protests over the weekend, but they're very small and very scattered now. And Lukashenko seems firmly in control and very anchored to Russia. The second was in Kyrgyzstan, and the Russians sorted that one out very fast. The third was in the Caucasus, and it's increasingly looking as if even more information now. The Russians are steadily tightening their grip even further. And well, we'll see how that plays out, but they seem to have that situation under control too. What they will do in Ukraine is another matter. The big worry I suspect they have, the major concern, and there have been some articles about this, is that Biden will take steps now to try to get Russia disconnected from SWIFT. That's the interbank payment system. I think the Germans will oppose it, the French will oppose it, not because they like the Russians, but because too many of their own businesses would be affected and it would cause major problems there. And the Russians do have a backup. But from what I've heard, that backup is still only a backup, hasn't been expanded properly, and perhaps that's what they need to do.
All right. From Silent Gary. Glad you guys are still around. Many thanks. Thank you very much, Silent Gary. We are still around.
Absolutely.
Frustrated at everything that YouTube is doing to us, but still around.
Still around.
No sense. 25 RON. Justices, judges, and Dershowitz are hypocrites. If they were interested in the rule of law, they'd raise hell about the irregularities of the absentee ballots.
Well, I think we've on our programs made our feelings about this very, very clear. What I'm going to say is this: I definitely think the Supreme Court of the United States should have heard that Texas lawsuit, even if they decided against Texas, even if they said as part of that lawsuit and gave a reasoned decision saying, for example, that Texas had no standing. I did agree with that view, but there is that view. There's an interesting article in the Federalist that tries to argue it from an originalist position. But I think that the Supreme Court was needed to give an explanation. It needed to give a reasoned decision. Instead, I'm sorry to use this term, it ran away. It refused even to entertain the suit at all, even though it's one that millions of people were waiting for. And that was a total abdication by the Supreme Court. And I'm afraid it's, as I said previously, had a chilling effect throughout the judicial system and is not inconsistent with what we've seen elsewhere.
All right. From, where am I here? Okay, from Eletius Speaks 499. Trump never produced a single death certificate to establish that dead people voted. His failure to produce that simple documentation is telling.
Well, there may be something in this, but I come back to what I've said many times. Time. I mean, there was problems in issues of time, issues of the United States being a huge country. Anyway, I think now we have to be careful what we say.
He had thousands of affidavits.
Yeah, so
it goes well beyond.
Yeah.
A certificate. I mean,
yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go on. I mean, it's so much bigger than just producing a certificate, I think.
Yes. I agree. I mean, producing one certificate anyway isn't going to do anything. I mean, you need a massive accumulation of information, and well, time to do that very limited indeed. But anyway, I mean, I would remind the viewers again, we are very constrained about what we can say all about this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so much bigger than a certificate.
Yes.
All right. It's much bigger than that. We just can't talk about it.
We can't talk about it.
What's really telling? You want to know what's really telling, Alexander? We have one more super chat. And everybody in the live stream, that they don't let us talk about this. That's what's really telling.
Well, of course.
What does that tell you? And the super chat question. What does that tell you that in the United States of America, you can't talk about stuff like this?
I mean, you can't answer a question. We've just had a question.
What does that tell you?
Well, I mean, it tells you everything. It tells you all sorts of things about the state of the United States of America. I mean, I think that Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton and John Adams and Madison, I mean, and George Washington, they'd all be absolutely appalled if they knew about this. They'd be shocked. They'd be said, what did we stage that revolution for? Why not just, stick with King George in that case? Or right now, what have we achieved by all of this? Well, a great history. United States did amazing things, but is this what the United States has become? When people cannot discuss topics like this, which are of such interest to so many people.
Yeah, and if you have nothing to fear, because the evidence is in your favor, then why not let people discuss it?
Well, exactly. Quite so.
Okay, we have a few more super chats that came in from Sparky, $5 super chat. Officer corps in U.S. military isn't drawn from the elitists, as in many countries, up to lieutenant colonel. They support Trump. Lieutenant colonel at the beginning of World War II.
I've heard that too. I believe that is true, and that may have important implications, but not, I think, over the next few weeks. I understand that Donald Trump has much support in the U.S. military, with the middle ranks of the officer corps, with the soldiers and sailors and Air Force people, and there may come a time, for example, if all these people are sent to fight somewhere, where that becomes extremely important. So that's something not to be overlooked. Can I just say, I don't want to push these comparisons too far, because Russia and the US are so profoundly different. But in 1999, there's a major political crisis in Russia, and the middle-ranking officers made their feelings very well known to their commanders over the course of a political crisis. And one effect of that was that Vladimir Putin became eventually president of Russia. Now, I don't want to push these comparisons too far, because Russia is a very, very different country from the United States. But that the people in the military have a certain view, that's an important thing. And it's not something that can be discounted and overlooked.
All right, take a pick. 1313 says the world order loves Trump. He has given them all they wanted, full censorship on the internet worldwide. And number 2, voting confusion to start the reset.
Well, yes. I don't think we should blame Donald Trump for this, but certainly what has happened over the last 5 years, because it really began during the election, the 2016 election, is that a lot of, a mask, let's put it like this, has fallen, and all sorts of things have been done publicly, which perhaps were being done to a great extent covertly before. And again, when people who work in the shadows are being forced to come out and do things like this, in the end, it doesn't turn out to work very well for them.
Okay, from JJHW, if taken off SWIFT, then the cables that connect banks could be easily sabotaged. Imagine if no one could get their money anywhere on the globe.
Absolutely. Again, I look, these are disaster scenarios. I simply hope we don't get to anything remotely like that. But and I also hope that there are people around Biden who have enough sense and enough understanding of the complexities of the world to be able to advise Biden that this would be an extremely unwise step to take. The Germans and the French have opposed it up to now. I predict they will continue to oppose it going forward. Not because they like Russia, but because, as I said, they understand what a wildly dangerous thing that would be to do. But there is some talk of it. It's not actually come from Biden himself or from the Biden team, but there are some hints that it's being considered.
Okay, from Sparky, they looked on social security index to the answer to the super chat question. Correct.
I'm afraid I lost that one, Alex. Your voice was distorted.
Sparky said they looked on social security death index.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To answer the previous super chat question from Flying Boar, even progressives like TYT smear Assange that he is a Russian agent.
Yes, I know. I'm well aware of that. I come up against this all the time. We
TYT's establishment media.
absolutely. But I mean, yeah, Alex and I have done programs about this, many programs, over the course of which we pointed out that even Mueller admitted that he couldn't prove that Assange got the emails from the Russians. And that's actually in his report. And it's also, by the way, in the indictments. And I understand that since then, there have been further admissions, made privately, that the US authorities actually don't know how Assange got those emails, and that every attempt to link him to the Russians has been proved to be untrue. Now, that's the kind of thing that, John Durham ought to be clearing up.
All right. And the final super chat came late, but many Trump voters are not Republicans and dislike neocons. Let's feel betrayed too. Could right and left unite for a third party? Will there be another 2008 recession repeat?
Well, about recession repeats, my own personal guess actually is that it's more likely that in the months ahead we will see a recovery again. But that's beginning to look more shaky now, and frankly, the new administration does not inspire confidence. So let me just say that. So. We will see. I mean, there could be a repeat. There's many problems in the financial system. But my own view is that if we have a crisis like that, it will be in Europe. And it's to Europe that we should now look. I think the situation in Europe looks very bad. I think the United States still has quite a lot of momentum behind it, economically speaking, at least.
Okay, from Take a Pick. 1313. Seems like the deep state looks and acts like a mafia boss smoking his cigar and saying, yeah, what you going to do about it?
Yes. In a word.
Yes. From very good observation. From Interim President Toilet Sauce, €5 super chat. The fact that there are even rumors of cutting Russia off from SWIFT tells me how desperate they are.
I agree with that. I mean, I think it's a completely ludicrous thing. By the way, what is precipitating it is that there's been a major boom in the Russian stock market this year, which is a bit difficult to understand. But apparently, again, there's money going into Russia at the moment. So there's some worries. This has provoked. I mean, yeah, I don't, by the way, know how stable that is, but there's apparently been some worries about this. And people want to sort of cut off Russia from SWIFT because they want to cut off what could conceivably be a Russian investment boom going forward. Whether that Russian investment boom crystallizes is another question, which I'm not going to discuss on the program because, again, it would be going completely off topic.
All right, Alexander, the dog needs to go out for a walk.
Yeah, he certainly does.
We're going to end the live stream there. And,
he certainly does. That's why I need this, brother.
We'll catch everyone tomorrow to talk about Brexit. Spartan Warrior Queen, thank you very, very much for your awesome moderation. Thank you to everybody that sent the super chat. Thank you to all the questions. There was someone in the live stream that wanted to know our take on the sanctions against Turkey. And from Trump and the S-400s. So I don't know if you just want to answer that really.
Yes, I
20 seconds. Real quick.
Very quickly, I mean, I think this is a big move, actually, because, of course, Turkey up to now, there's been resistance to sanctioning Turkey in that way, but that's happening. And the talk is the Biden team are looking to sanction Turkey even more. So what the Turks will do, what Erdogan will do in response, heavens knows, but he's certainly not going to back off the S-400s buy. Of that, I am sure.
Well, maybe we'll do a video on that as well.
I think so. I think we should. Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you very much to everybody. Make sure to check your subscription, guys, please, because YouTube is subscribing people en masse from our channel as well. So your help is always appreciated. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much, Spartan Warrior Queen. Everyone have a good evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and we will see you tomorrow. I just want to make sure. I think I got every super chat. Yes, I did. All right, guys. Take care.
Yeah.